Losing a parent, especially a mother at the age of 7 years, is one of the hardest things that can happen to a child, especially if that mother is dying of a very strange illness. But later in life, finding out that that strange illness could also be in your blood is hard to live with. For Ruth Namutebi, the memory of her mother on her deathbed still lingers on her mind. But today, I sit down with her as we tackle one of the hardest topics, one of the most unsettling topics, and that is living positively with HIV AIDS. Welcome to this episode of The Untold Story. My name is Sarah Video Mishra, and I am sitting down with Ruth Namutebi. It's good to have you today.
Thank you very much, Sarah.
It's really been a long time coming for us to sit down, and we've had a little bit of delays due to the COVID-19 lockdown, but I'm really glad that we are finally doing this. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm good. How did the lockdown treat you?
Not so bad.
Oh, I can see. So today I want us to start off with talking about your mother. I know it is one of the hardest things that you have to face today. People asking you again, over and again, about your mother, her dying, and you growing up without her, and all that. But I would like to know, what is that final memory of your mother that you have, the last bit of the memory?
The last memory I have of my mom was when I went to hospital, Mulago, and it was me and my sister. I remember a room that was packed with people, and she was on oxygen, and she had a tube down her mouth, her throat. She was eating through a tube. And a few days later, they announced her death.
Okay. At that point, did you ask anyone what was happening to your mother?
Actually, I did not ask anyone. I was too young. I was probably 6 or 7 years of age. But I do remember growing up, I thought that my mom died because she was blind. At that point, she could not really see anything that was that close to her. And actually, I remember she was calling me my sister's name instead.
Okay. Yeah. Is your sibling younger or older than you?
Younger.
Okay. By that time, you're supposed to be in school. Where were you?
I was at Shimon Demonstration School. That was primary 1.
Okay. Did your mother ever come to see you at school when she was ill? Or did you always have to go to the hospital to check on her?
The last memory I have of my mom bringing me to school was the very first day she brought me to school with my dad. And that was primary 1 at Shimon Demonstration School. That is the last memory I have of her, when she was actually walking on her 2 feet.
Okay. You're 7, your mother is dead, but you have your father, thank God. What happens? Where do you go to?
We stayed home. I remember life became hard for my dad. He went into depression, spent a few days without eating, but lucky for him, he had family around to take care of him. Okay. And I remember he sat us down and told us that we should never, ever cry about my mom, ever again. And my sister was 5 years of age, I was 7 years of age. We stayed with family. I grew up in an extended family. My aunt, who happens to be his sister, took us up to this day.
Okay. So you're now living with your aunt, you're going to school, and somehow you find out that you're HIV positive, and it's the same illness that took your mother. Who broke the news?
My aunt, the one I grew up with, since she was responsible, literally responsible for everything. She saw me through school, saw me through my TB treatment. She saw me through my medical insurance, because she was working with an embassy that was catering for my medical insurance. So definitely when it came to hospital, there was no any other female figure to break the news to me unless her. So yeah, it was one dreadful evening, and she took me up to her incomplete structure and she broke the news to me.
Did you understand any of what she was saying, and how old were you?
I think I was 13. I was in senior 1. That was at St. Lawrence Sunday in Namgongo. And it didn't make any sense. It felt like, that also.
Okay.
Until, well, as time went on, something started happening in my mind.
Did you ever fall sick on and off during the, now from P1 up to when you're 13?
All my life, I have been in and out of hospitals.
So all your life, from the time you're 7, P1 up to the age of 13, were you always falling sick? Was this affecting you?
Yes, all my life I've been falling sick. I remember the first very terrible illness I had was in my kindergarten. I had a terrible skin rash, head to toe, and it was hard to treat. And then I remember always being sick for something, either malaria or it's a TB, or I had always an illness somehow, somewhere. And as time went on, I learned how to be able to take myself through the hospital procedure without having anyone to be there.
Okay. So now your auntie has broken the news. You're in high school. When you went back to school, were you in boarding section?
I started boarding section in primary 6 at St. Joseph's in Zambia Girls Primary School. And at that time I was on tuberculosis treatment, which is 6 months long. So I finished my P7 at that time and continued with boarding school.
Okay. So how do you go back to school now with the thought of you being HIV positive and not knowing how to deal with it? Because now your auntie has just broken the news. You're not even sure maybe what it really means, but you have to go back to school. Did you tell anyone?
I didn't study senior 2 first term because they thought that the medication effects would get to me. But lucky for me, nothing happened. I didn't face any side effects. Then as time went on, I was changed school from St. Lawrence Sunday to Myenga High School in Namutebi. Why? Because it was directly opposite the hospital that I go to, which is IHK, and I had medical insurance. Originally, I did not have, I was not really bothered by being HIV positive because I didn't really understand what it meant. But as time went on, you watch TV, you hear stories, you see newspapers, you hear people sharing their stories. It began to hit me, of course. So when I joined secondary, senior 2 at Myenga High, I was seeking, should I call it a consolation or acceptance?
Yeah.
I ended up disclosing to a friend of mine who didn't keep the secret. And before that evening went down, everyone at school knew my HIV status. And that was the beginning of all my problems.
Okay. So when you say all your problems, what do you mean?
I was stigmatized the entire time from senior 2 to campus.
So when you talk about your problems, what problems did you actually face after your friend had disclosed all this?
I had students pointing fingers at me. I had people calling me names, walking corpse. I had people stigmatizing me. Eventually, I started isolating myself from everyone. I stopped being friendly. I cut off connection with everyone in school. It was a sad situation. I was depressed, I was stigmatized, I was very unhappy. I lost interest academically. As time went on, I started dodging classes. I would get to school and begin to think, really, what's the point of me attending class today? Then I would go back home. And when I would get home, I would lie to them that it's because I'm sick. But because they knew my background, they would not ask so many details. They'll let me stay home.
Okay. Did you ever seek help from the teachers at school?
Not at all. Schools are a bit funny. Very few schools understand the fact that students struggle with emotional issues. Students come from dysfunctional families, so they have so many problems. They would want that help, but they don't know who to go to. So the entire school knew, and by entire school I mean the administration. They knew. They were hearing these things, but no one came up to me to try and initiate a conversation or a discussion. So I walked through this on my own for the next 3-4 years.
Okay. So at home, did they ever think of getting you a counselor or someone you could speak to tell what was going on with your life?
I come from a family where they don't believe in depression. And I think it's not just my family. It's an issue with Africans.
Yeah,
we think that depression is not a thing. Because I was fat, excessively fat, you couldn't tell I was going through anything. But I had a lot on my mind. I was not happy with myself, but no one could tell. Because for me, home felt safe and I could be myself.
No one was laughing at you?
So you could not even suspect that I was going through anything. My family got to know that I was going through hell after New Vision released my story.
So how do you bounce back from this to get back to school and continue with your academics?
First of all, I realized that this was my life and that I was not living for anyone else. And then I realized that life is not a rehearsal. There are no second chances. I also realized that I had a baby sister, and for everything I was doing, I was setting an example for her. So I needed to fight to be better. And then I also lived in fear of disappointing my family. I come from a family where we have no room for failures. So you either make it in life or you make it in life. There is no any other option. Knowing that I could not afford to disappoint my family, I had parents who were paying tuition for me. I had a roof over my head, food on the table. Basically, the only problem I had was the stigma. I had to overlook it. I had to fight. I learned how to pray. I learned how to fast. I had so many things, so many reasons to fight.
So you're done with high school. Where do you go next? Did you go to campus? Did you have a dream?
After high school was hard for me. I remember in HSC, my sister was admitted in Butavika Hospital. At the same time, my aunt who was running home was away. So there is a way responsibility shifted to me. Now when responsibility shifted to me, it meant that I needed to have a small phone in my bra at school.
At school, yeah.
That is Kapungulu Memorial. Such that each time they needed anything at home, I mean anything, electricity has been cut, the water bill to be paid, they have no food, the landlord has come by, it is me they would call.
Where were you getting the money to pay all these bills?
At some point, when my sister was admitted in Butavika Hospital, that's when I realized I had relatives abroad. They reached out and they offered to be sending us some money every month. So we would budget for that money to do whatever we could afford to do. So being that I was the oldest and I was the one who could do the financial bit of it, they entrusted me to receive the money every month. So I could not be a full-time boarding student. I had to ask the senior woman to help me and make me half day, half boarder. So on several occasions, I would be in school from Monday to Wednesday. Thursday, Friday, I would be at home, such that I am checking on my sister to make sure that she's fine in hospital. I'm making sure that there is food at home, electricity is on. My little cousin brother is in school. And then also the person who was like the oldest at home, the caretaker, is also okay and nothing is lacking. So my mind was everywhere.
At school and home.
At school, at home.
At the hospital.
and hospital.
Because you still had to go and get your medication at that point also.
Yes. My senior 6 results came out and had performed really poorly. I had 12 points. However, my dream was to become an architect. And I knew at the back of my mind that if I do not get that course, I would rather repeat senior 6, but make sure that I become an architect. So lucky for me, I knew someone who had come to school to give us career guidance. So I remembered that I had taken their number and I reached out to them. When I called them, I told them my issues, and they suggested that I apply in Uganda technical colleges. There are 5 of them around Uganda. So lucky for me, when I applied, I got a scholarship, and I studied for 2 years in Masindi, Uganda Technical College, Masindi, Chema.
What exactly did you graduate with in the end? Because I thought you were an architect, but you told me a different, complicated title.
I hold a diploma in architecture, which makes me an architectural draftswoman.
Wow. What does that person do?
Technically, what a draftswoman does is I'm more of like the assistant to the architect, just like the nurse is an assistant to a doctor.
Oh.
So I draft all the plans for the architect. The difference is the architect is licensed. He has the stamp.
Okay.
So the reason I want to get my degree is to be able to become a licensed architect, and I can certify plans.
Okay, so you're still working on that?
So yeah, because of my HIV status, I've been denied scholarships in several countries.
How does that play out? Like they say we will not take you on because you're HIV positive, point blank.
Scholarships are tricky. When you're applying for a scholarship, there are procedures in between there. You can do an English international test, which costs about 1 million. You can do another exam depending on the education system of that country and their requirements. So what happens is, before you go further and investing all that kind of money, applying for a vacancy or admission, you need to first communicate with the administration system of the other university on the other side of the country. So what we would do is, I happen to find an organization that helps people find scholarships. I paid up with them. I did the international English language test. Then the last part was finding the scholarship. So I got a scholarship to China. It was 100% architecture, but they could not give me because of my HIV status. I got another in Turkey, the same. I got another in Cyprus, the same. I got another in India, the same. So what we'd do is we'd send them my results first, and then we ask them, is it possible for you to give someone with such results a scholarship? They would say yes. And then when you ask them, can you give her if she's positive? They would say no, because medicals is a thing. Why? Because you can't go to study in a foreign country when you don't have medical insurance. So from my perspective, I think it's probably because they worry for your medical insurance, or they worry that you could spread the disease further. So yes, that's it.
Okay. So you're done with school, you want to upgrade now. Let's look at your life outside school. Where have you worked? Did you ever look for a job, or did you start your own business after school?
Actually, I was very lucky. After school, I had so many job opportunities. I worked with National Water and Storage Corporation in Gaba as a trainee. Then I worked with J. Insubgand, Associate Architects. He's the architect behind the URA building in Nakawa. I worked with Juan Sang Industries as a graphics designer. I worked with Spear Motors as a software instructor. I also worked with Sudil Lupaleria group of companies as a part-time architecture draftswoman. Currently, I don't work for anyone because I've tried to build my career an image, I get clients calling me from nowhere. Some are just recommended. They've seen the kind of work I'm capable of doing, so they reach out.
So at work, did you ever, did anyone ever deny you a job because of your HIV status?
No one has ever denied me a job because of my HIV status, because they never got to know.
Then I also wanted to know, you're HIV positive and you're working. Maybe there is a certain kind of stress maybe that you're not supposed to be subjected to. So while working with all these companies, what was your experience?
My experience with one of the companies was that they would not give us time to rest. We would work until Saturday around 5 p.m. You would only have Sunday to rest, of which on Sunday you have also laundry to do. They would not give us time off to go to the hospital, maybe for medical checkups. So basically, when I started working for this company, I lost weight in the very first week of working with them. And my appearance could show that all was not well.
So you are a peer educator?
Yes, with Reach a Hand Uganda.
Yes. Away from your architect's work, I hope I'm getting this right. It's one of the hardest things that I've had to pronounce today. What other stuff are you doing? What do you do?
I started an NGO called Daria Kaitesi Safe Space. And what exactly that NGO does is that it provides a safe space for everyone who is HIV positive out there, and they don't feel loved by the world. It's like an open space for them to come and be a part of. And while there, what I do is basically I provide psychosocial support for people who are HIV positive. I make sure I put a roof over their head. I try to provide them with treatment, that is ARVs, and food as well.
Okay, where do you get money to do all this? Because if you're giving people shelter and giving them food and medication, you must be getting some funding.
Of course, all NGOs survive of funding and donations. So we try to do as much pitching of this idea as possible, and we partner with several other organizations with the same cause. So they come on board and they bring in all the kind of assistance they can.
Okay, do you receive any funding from any local organizations, or do you have any partnerships with local organizations, or does government even fund you?
I've not yet gotten to the level of being funded by the government, but I have a few partners like Eagles RFC. It's a rugby club, but we do have the same cause, which is to fight HIV. So they come on board whenever I need them. And also another organization called Secret Initiative. It promotes motivational speaking, because apart from the NGO, I also do motivational speaking, public appearances in schools, churches, hospitals, Rotary clubs. So that is part of it, and that is how Secret Initiative comes in. It provides us with platforms to pitch our idea and to preach the gospel as well. I also I am currently attending the mentorship class, and what it does is that it nurtures us into the next or the future leaders of this nation. It mentors us into the right quality of people who are to be employed in the future. I'm also involved in several other businesses that I'm doing. I am also a peer educator with Reach a Hand Uganda, volunteering with them, and it's for a period of 1 year.
As a peer educator, you get to go to high schools. Do you also go to primary schools?
For now, I'm only doing secondary schools and universities.
Okay.
And with universities, the Uganda Society of Architects, after reading my story in the New Vision, they came out and offered me a suggestion of pitching to technical institutes and all universities out there, but the engineering faculty only.
Okay. What are some of the biggest challenges that youth, especially young people in secondary schools and universities, are facing, especially those who are HIV positive?
The challenges most people living with HIV are facing is that, I can give an example for myself. When someone looks like they have HIV, even when they don't have it, people will automatically think that they have it. For instance, when I was at campus, that is in Masindi, Uganda Technical College, Chema, I had students name calling me, and I could not have a friend. Every friend I tried to make, people would go to them and tell them, stay away from that girl. She will infect you with HIV. So for me, having a male friend at campus was an issue. Everyone who was friends with me, and provided they were male, someone would go to them and tell them to stay away from me, which really treated me bad. At some point, I remember ending up swallowing 90 pills because I wanted to take my life. I was tired of everyone around me. I didn't feel loved, I didn't feel wanted. And to be honest, by the time I left campus, people thought that I would not make it in life because I looked HIV. I had shortly been discharged from Chibuli Hospital. I was suffering from ulcers. I had wounds from my throat to my intestines, so I couldn't swallow food. And I had a terrible rash from the low CD4 count. So basically, when you looked at me at that point, I didn't look like I was going to survive the next day. So that is how students go to talk about me at school. The other issue I faced at campus was I could not be able to swallow my medicine. I lived in fear of thinking if someone found me opening that tin of ARVs, they would talk about me and the entire campus would know. I would not have any more friends. So I found myself dodging swallowing my ARVs.
Which is dangerous.
Which is dangerous, of course, I knew. But at this point, I'm not thinking about the dangers.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about people not pointing fingers at me because I don't want to go back to what I went through in high school. So the other issues I know that people are living with HIV face is that sometimes you people who are HIV negative, when you come out and you're trying to tell someone else that, yo, this baby is HIV positive, stay away from her, you think you're doing the right thing, but you're doing the wrong thing. You're not doing a favor. Instead of coming out like that, I think there are so many right ways to put it. You can either approach me, or you can approach the other person and tell them to just be careful, but you don't go around trying to decide for people not to hang out with me because I'm like that or this. Yeah.
So someone in a situation that you were in back then, when you go to universities, to secondary schools, and people tell you the same challenges that you faced, how do you help them deal with these challenges as a peer educator now?
As a peer educator, we are scripted. We are basically talking about SRH, which is sexual reproductive and health rights. We do not, in most cases, we don't go down into detail of those things. But when I'm talking HIV and AIDS on a personal basis, yes, also as a peer educator, of course I have those students who come to me personally and they're like, Ruth, I'm also like you, but I'm facing this challenge. I think most of them, the challenge they face is the poor meals. The meals are terrible at school, and being HIV positive, you need to have a balanced diet. You need to be eating well, you can't afford to eat late. Some of them face the challenge of they want to leave class during preps to go swallow their medicine because it's about time for their medicine. But you see, the teacher does not allow you to go to dormitory at that time, and you cannot, you cannot tell your teacher that, look, this and this, because you don't trust them enough to keep your secret. And the other issue I think they face is that the conditions of school, the fact that there is housework. I hated housework so much. It made me feel sick. They give you a whole chunk of veranda to clean up, and you're probably not feeling well, you're sick. you're probably feverish, and then you have these early morning freezing cold preps you have to attend. So it's a lot. Everyone has their own story, and every HIV person I've met has given me their own story. And sometimes I look at mine and I'm like,
I'm okay.
Yeah,
I'm better.
I'm better.
Okay, in all these programs, do you have a program that engages teachers and teaches them really how to deal with students who are HIV positive? If a child came to you and spoke to you as a teacher, how you're supposed to respond, do you talk about that too?
We don't have those programs as of yet, but under Reach a Hand, we try to engage the teachers. But personally, as under my NGO, I have not yet initiated it, but I'll think about it. However, I always advise these students to open up to their teachers, to find that one teacher, make them your friend, and open up to them. Sometimes teachers can be harsh only in the name of commanding respect, but in actual sense, they are down to earth and are willing to listen and help out. So I encourage them to make friendships with those teachers, and I leave them with my number always, such that they can call in case of anything.
Okay. About the medication, I realize there is a lot of tablets that people living with HIV have to swallow. At any point in your life, did you ever give up and say, I'm tired of this medication, I think I'll just live with it and give up?
Yeah, I spent a year without swallowing my medication. I was tired of it. You get tired of swallowing that medicine. Believe me, it's not about age, it's not about responsibility. Even I, at some point, I'm like, today, you will not see me. I refuse to swallow the medicine sometimes. But of course, you know at the back of your mind that it is not right. You have to swallow the medicine. One of the reasons as to why people don't swallow the medicine is because some people feel like they want to throw up immediately after swallowing the medicine. Sometimes the medicine it's a kind of big tablet, so going down your throat can be tricky sometimes. So personally for me, I dissolve it in water and then I drink it after it has completely dissolved. Some people smash it. It's bitter, but I mean, it's not like you have an option. And then again, it's a myth when people say that we swallow a lot of medicine. It depends which line are you on. There is line 1, line 2, and third line. Most people who are on third line are the ones who swallow a lot of medication.
Is that when it is worse?
Third line is when you have failed line 1, you have failed line 2. And how this comes about is there is this thing called mutating. Viruses mutate. In Luganda bachita okuguba. Kati akawuka ako bwe kaguba ngobadde ku line 1 bagenda kusindika ku line 2, meaning that kaba eddagala lya line 1 liba terikyasobola kassa wansi kuba kaba kagubye. Bwe kaguba, which is mutating in English, it means it has changed format, it has changed state. And that's why you hear people saying that COVID, the second wave, is going to be tough. It's exactly what they are trying to say, but they cannot use the technical terms for you to understand. So that's what happens with HIV. When it mutates from the first line, you fail first line, they take you to second line. If you fail second line, they take you to third line. Now, if you fail third line, that is AIDS. That's the difference between HIV and AIDS. So that it becomes AIDS, and there is no any way out of AIDS.
To bring it down again.
Yes.
Okay. I have heard from at least 2 or 3 HIV positive living people saying that at some point it can be possible for one not to transmit.
Yes, it's very true.
How does that come about?
Just like me, I can't transmit anymore, even if I want to, because when you swallow your medicine religiously, meaning that you do not miss at all, it suppresses the virus in your bloodstream, meaning that I can take an HIV test right now and my results could come out negative. Because the virus is not in my bloodstream, it's in my organs. My organs meaning the brain, the lungs, the kidneys, you get. So it's what they call being undetectable, meaning that the virus is undetectable in your bloodstream, not in your organs, but it's undetectable in your bloodstream. So once it's undetectable in your bloodstream, you can't pass it on to anyone. And that's why you hear cases like we have a discordant couple, meaning that one partner is HIV positive and another is negative. They can have sex and they can have unprotected sex and bear a child who is HIV negative. It is so true.
And the other one still remains
remains negative.
Ah, okay. That's one of the most confusing things
it's
for
so
people
true. Very few people
understand.
Know about
yes.
it.
So talking about relationships, are you dating?
I'm not dating, and being single sucks. Being single sucks. I'm not dating, and I've been single for 2 years now.
Okay, but you've dated before. What challenges did you ever meet? Have you ever been rejected by anyone just because you've told them that you're HIV positive?
Yes, there's this guy I met, and I told him my HIV status. I was thinking I was doing a favor. And then he told me, you know what, thank you for having a good heart, thank you for telling me.
I'm out.
Keep doing it, I'm out. I never got to hear from him again.
Oh,
but
God.
you know, for me that was a good experience, because then it taught me that it's better to tell someone your HIV status at the beginning, at the early stages of a relationship, such that they don't waste your time. Rather than you telling them halfway the relationship, you're probably already sexually active, and then what? They want to walk out. Yeah.
Okay, so is it so easy for you to just tell someone? Or is there anyone you've dated and not told about it?
I've only dated one person and never told them. And I pity him because he got to find out through New Vision. But
did he ever reach out to to scold you for not telling
there's
him?
no way he could scold me because we never had unprotected sex, so he was safe. And at the same time I was undetectable, so there's no way I could spread it to him. But I have never dated anyone HIV positive. Past relationships I had, I told all the guys I've told my HIV status, they've been very okay with it. The problem is that there are those ones who will refuse to go for an HIV test.
Oh yes, I was going to ask, how do you know they are negative and not
I
positive?
always ask. There is one guy actually decided to leave because he refused to come with me for an HIV test. I wanted to know how he's standing, such that just in case he does not put the blame on me that I infected him. But he refused to test, and I decided to move on.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what advice do you give people who are living positively with HIV, want to date but are scared to tell their partners?
That is the most tricky part of life. I've been there. I know what it means. I think that's the one question that has filled my inbox. I have so many ladies who ask me that question, and I always tell them that if you're below the age of 18, basically, let's say you're still in school, really, why should you stress yourself about a relationship? And this is what I tell high school students, that if you are still in school, you can always have a relationship that is based on abstinence. You don't have to necessarily be sexually active. I mean, I had my first boyfriend in senior 6, and we were never sexually active, and we dated a whole year. And he knew my HIV status. It can still be like that. You don't have to necessarily be sexually active. But then for those who want to be sexually active, I always tell them that you can be with a guy, get to know his intentions. Because you see, it's useless to disclose your status to someone whose intentions were just to have sex with you and dump you. But if you're telling your secret to someone whose intentions is to actually settle down with you, you're sure that your secret is safe with them. The problem is men don't shut up. You tell a man your HIV status, and then before you know it, the entire village knows that so and so. Yeah. So that's why most ladies try to hide their status. And this is why I tell them, if you decided to hide your status, how about you also abstain? Because it's useless to hide your status, then you sleep with this guy, and then tomorrow when he finds out that you're positive, he dumps you. you'll be heartbroken twice. You've
Oh,
slept
he
with
already
him.
picked it from someone else and puts the blame on
Yes. You've already slept with him and you love him. So he's going to dump you after using you and then you complain. But if you date him, you're not sexually active, you can decide whenever you want to tell him your HIV status.
you. So you have done so many interviews, and I believe you're still doing more. Do you feel like you're making a difference by doing all this?
Yes, I have inspired so many. There is no day I have woken up to my social media and not found a message of admiration, or you inspire me, I want to be your friend. I think most of the people who are coming into my life are not necessarily people who are HIV positive, but these are people who are HIV negative and they're struggling with life and they think it is that bad. And then when they see this person who has lived with HIV for 28 years, and they are still fighting on, they even admire me.
Okay, she has the hopes that she'll get her degree. And
Definitely. So they admire me more, and I think most of the people in my inbox are people who want to be my friends, just to learn from me and everything that I have learned. And some people just want to walk the journey I've walked. They want to do the things I've done. Some just want to be able to get the connections I've got. So basically, I feel I'm proud of the fact that I'm able to tell my story thanks to my aunt who encouraged me. And it's something I don't think I'm going to stop doing anytime soon.
So when I first saw you, I watched you on TV, and then I reached out to you via social media. Have you ever been a victim of cyberbullying? Because by now most people know your status. They've watched you on TV, they've read your stories in New Vision and many other media outlets. Have you ever been attacked on social media by any cyberbullies because of your status?
There's this one guy I studied with at campus. He's one of those people who tried so hard to make sure that I don't have friends at school because of my HIV status. So that time when I posted that flyer of that show I did, he came out and posted that, you better tell the truth, tell the world the truth, you did this, you did that. And then at the back of my mind, I'm thinking, what is this guy's problem? But later on, I remembered that he's the same very person who was telling my friends to stay away from me because I looked HIV positive. So when I understood that this one has a personal issue, it was just a matter of blocking that person and moving on. Number two, I always tell people that HIV is not a product that you walk into a supermarket and purchase it off the stalls. It is not a good that you have to board a plane and go import it to Uganda. It can happen to you when you least expect it. I have so many women who have told me that I got HIV from my husband. I didn't know he was cheating. I have so many people who have told me they're HIV positive, but they don't know how they got it and they are still virgin. I have so many people who I know who are HIV positive because of a car accident, blood exchange. It can happen to you any day, anytime. It could be a nail cutter. So
it could be a syringe.
Anything. You could go to a dentist and they probably didn't sanitize their tools and you get the virus. So you could even be raped. I know people who have been raped, but because they didn't know that there was that treatment, 72-hour treatment to prevent the contraction, they didn't get it, so they ended up HIV positive. So I tell people that while you're busy making an alarm about my issue, you better watch for yourself, because God is a fair God.
Yes, he is. Well, I don't know if there is anything more you'd like to talk about, maybe talking to the young people who are losing hope. I've had the chance of living with one young lady who was 17, and she told me at some point she stopped taking medication. She was blaming her parents for bringing her into the world when she was HIV positive, and she had no access to a counselor to speak to her. And I'm very sure we have so many young girls. What would you tell them? Just something to encourage them to hold on.
So for the young girls out there, you're probably in the same shoes as I am. This is what I tell them. You can't escape pain. That is it. You will not understand it until you've overcome it. You either go through the pain or you just have to endure it. I always encourage people who come to me crying about issues. I tell them, first of all, cry as much as you want, because it's part of healing. I did that for the longest time ever. I cried until I could cry no more. So I encourage them to take their time and heal. Do not pretend that the pain is not there, try to run away from it, because those are grieving stages. You live in denial. I also blamed my mother for giving birth to me at some point, but I outgrew it. It's they are stages, grieving stages. You have to go through them. You can't skip them. And you do not decide for yourself that now I am done with this grieving stage, I'm going to the next one. It happens at its own pace. So you cannot dodge pain. First of all, I always tell them that endure the pain, cry if you have to cry, because I cannot encourage you to pretend that the pain is not there. The more you try to pretend it's not there, the more it's going to hit you. So you have to walk through the pain, and only then will you be able to heal. And you also need to know that this is your life. You're not doing anyone a favor by being alive. It is your life, so by all means you have to stay alive, you have to work hard and fight for yourself. There is always that sixth sense, yes, that everyone has. So it's always talking to you. You always listen, and you know that it's not the end of life. I mean, if I made it this far and I didn't even think I would, I think there are people out there who have it all. They can make it this far.
Okay.
My last words would go to the men who usually dump their wives because they're HIV positive. It's a total waste of time, believe me. Even the most beautiful women can be HIV positive. Even the most ugliest can be HIV positive. So running away from a woman who is HIV positive is a total waste of time. You could go to another one, fine. A few years down the road, she will contract the virus and bring it to you. There's a lady who came into my inbox and she told me she has been married to her husband for 5 years. They have children. She's HIV positive. She's not on medication.
Did he know?
He doesn't know. What does that mean? It means that you're wasting time trying to save your life by running away from a woman. Alternatively, you can go to hospital and they can advise you on how to behave sexually. There are so many treatments. We have PEP, we have PrEP. All those treatments work. It's just a matter of asking about the right method. You need to seek that information and find out. And do not assume because a woman looks good, she has no scars, she's okay. I have seen very beautiful women who are HIV positive, and you will bargain that they are.
Yeah, and some men who run after young girls of, oh, she's 17, she's okay, she couldn't be positive. You know?
That's what they think.
Okay, thank you so much, Ruth, for sharing with us. This has been really enriching. There is a lot that I've learned, and I'm very sure everyone out there has learned something. And one of the things that you should know is that testing positive for HIV is not a death sentence. You can live through it, just like Ruth has told us. You can help your loved one to live through it. This is a conversation that we cannot avoid to have. We must have this conversation, and the more we talk about it, the more we shall fight it. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Sarah Misho, and thank you so much, Aura Visions, for producing this episode. Ruth, it's good to have you.
Thank you.